All right. So next, the Historic Preservation Commission asked, when they make roadway improvements, essentially, should we keep in mind preserving the historic integrity of the neighborhood, especially in historical neighborhoods in Moscow? And 37% strongly agreed and 37% agreed. So this is one of our more popular questions. Most people do think that that should be a concern when building new housing and making infrastructure repairs. So the next question was from the Human Rights Commission, and they simply asked what questions that citizens would prefer to see them address. And they can mark more than one. Leading answer was homelessness, followed by poverty, then access to health care, bullying, and racial discrimination. So I found this question pretty interesting. I mean, at least personally, things like homelessness and poverty aren't things that I associate with Moscow, but it is, I think, important to keep in mind that these were what people marked the most. So these are issues that are affecting people's lives. Moving on, then they asked what respondents had personal experiences of discrimination. Most respondents said they had none. They were also able to mark more than one on this question. So our highest response was 14 said they faced gender discrimination. 12% said they faced discrimination on the basis of religion, and 7% for wealth or social class. And you can see the other numbers. Again, if there's any questions, feel free to stop me.
So is this, I have a question.
Yep.
So is this talking about just experiences in Moscow, just in general, workplace, anywhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. So we had a question from the Moscow Arts Commission that asked how citizens hear about cultural offerings. 64% said they heard it from word of mouth, which I think is another testament to the sort of communal aspect of Moscow, that's a pretty high percentage of people that are hearing about things just from engaging with each other. And I think, so social media was 41%. So I found that number interesting for two reasons. One, just that local newspapers was 39%. I found that really interesting that local newspapers are still pretty much at the same rate as social media, even with the growth of social media. And I think the second part of that'll be interesting is just to see how that develops and grows if we continue to do this survey and that question continues to be asked, how much more social media will be involved.
Excuse me?
Jim's got a question.
I wonder how much of social media and word of mouth overlap there is.
Yeah.
How many people perceive what they see on their
Right.
Facebook, Twitter account as word of mouth.
And in
maybe
addition,
some overlap there.
another thing I thought of too is you don't know if local newspaper means print newspaper, or they're going to the website directly, or they're clicking a social media link. You know, if they can click through the Moscow Pullman Daily News on Facebook, so that might be a part of those numbers too. So, but yeah.
Interesting.
So then they asked, did you attend the following performance art activities? 64% said they attended the Farmers Market live music performance. That's not really surprising since people are downtown anyways. 44% said they had attended entertainment in the park. 30% for the Art Walk music stages, and 10% for the Moscow Arts Commission band. So then the Moscow Pathways Commission asked about issues that citizens felt regarding the Moscow's pathway system. We could see that both street crossing safety and lighting were considered priorities for citizens, and as we'll see later, the most common suggestion for the city was improving safety at intersections. So that is not a trend that we've seen as much in citizen surveys, but it's a trend that came out in this report a couple of times. So that's something to consider. The next question asked how frequently trail sections were used. The most popular sections in Moscow were the Paradise Pass sections from 6th Street to Highway 95, as well as from Chipman to 6th Street. And then the third most popular was Lata Trail to Troy. But all the pathways were relatively popular, so I think that's a good sign that we have a pretty active community. Moving on to Parks and Recreation. In a testament to the Parks and Recreation Department, we didn't have a single respondent say they strongly disagreed that Parks and Rec provides adequate programs and activities. Now, that was pretty impressive. Out of 324, not one. 16% strongly agreed, and another 46% agreed, and just 4% total disagreed. So those numbers should inspire confidence in Parks and Rec. And they asked which age group would benefit from more activities and programs. Results are pretty clear that people want programs for younger people and older people.
Hey, us old guys need a little bit of activity
Older.
too. So
So the highest highest age group was 13 to 17, which I found kind of interesting. That I guess that high school age group. That's a interesting number. The second highest was 65 to 74-year-olds, and then the third was 5 to 12-year-olds at 23%. Next is the Planning and Zoning Commission. The next three questions were pretty complicated. They were all pretty thick paragraphs. But despite that fact, their response rates were 94%, 95%, 93%. This question asks if citizens believe that public and private colleges and universities should be allowed to apply and receive conditional use permits to operate in the central business district. And 62% said yes, and 32% said no.
I have a question about that.
Randy?
So I did look at it earlier, but if you could, the way the question was worded, did it specify additional educational uses versus existing, or was that not
I
specified?
don't believe so. Let me grab it real quick.
I didn't think
The
it
way I
did
see it,
either.
the educational uses should be allowed with the central business district through a conditional use permit.
Yeah.
That's how I,
Wasn't additional.
Right, so it
Also did say
wasn't
It's not
asking
additional.
how people feel about
Had nothing to do
additional,
with
it was
what
just,
Just in general.
yeah.
okay, that was my understanding, thank you.
Yep. All right. So then the next question asked about this concept of tiny homes. Get back to my
I
notes.
was kind of intrigued by this, Trevor.
Yeah, it
80%, that's kind of an interesting, and these are 400 square feet or less houses.
Yeah, they define it as generally a home of 400 square feet or less in size, which is constructed on wheels or a foundation.
I don't know how you would, well, obviously, that must be people that, there's more than one in a house. I don't know how in the world I'd ever get along with anybody, or they could get along with me. If I only had 400 feet, that'd be kind of a
That's
tough
me.
thing to get around. Art,
I've got a question here more for Bill. Does the current zoning ordinance permit tiny houses?
So tiny homes are permissible as a residential structure on a foundation. If it was on a chassis with wheels, we would consider that to be a recreational vehicle, and that would have to be placed in an RV park. But if you were to place if you wanted to build, I mean, there's no minimum size of home that you need to construct on a lot in the community. And if you wish to build one that's 400 square feet, you could.
as long as they fit within the square footage of what our plan says. In other
As long
words,
as the
R2.
lot met the minimum lot size and you
Right.
met the setback requirements, that would be permissible. And if you wish to do what is more commonly seen as a tiny home community, where multiple on a single lot, then you would have to go through plan unit development, but that'd be permissible as well.